Kerri-Anne Kennerley, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Okay, first the editorials. Get them out of the way. Punching horses.
Oh, I'm sitting in the car listening. That woman was right. I'm sorry. I don't care if you think a horse is aggressive. You do not punch a horse in the guts. Wrong. I would take a baseball bat to him. I'm sorry.
To the horse?
No, to the idiot jockey. Without a question.
You're a dog person. You're a horse person too.
I'm an animal person.
All right.
I'd also punch a few people.
Well, that's one. The horse, what, an NBN?
Oh, just words escape me. What part of over $60 billion wasted? And within a couple of years, we will all know it has been wasted. It will cost us more. It will be useless. It will be outdated. Why they didn't cut their losses years ago, pull the pin and just move on. It just riles me. The sensibility and lack of it in Canberra is astonishing. I was down there a couple of weeks ago lobbying for osteoporosis and seeing the machinations and the horse trading across between shadow ministers and ministers and all that sort of stuff. When you see it up close and personal, you go, really? There is nothing that's not self-serving about every single thing they do. Everything. It's to keep power, they don't want to horse trade that because it's a good idea. It couldn't possibly be a good idea, but I want that. So I'll give you a bit over here. Nothing to do with the health of the nation, economically or physical health. What part of that don't they get? It's all completely self-serving. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Until midday, you're with Kerri-Anne. When you're in television, I remember somebody telling me very early when I was working in television, you don't have opinions on television. Anybody ever tell you that?
No. I must have missed that course.
Would not have worked.
But that said, you do have all types on either sides of politics. And one example, which will be example I'm sure you'll enjoy, I had Pauline Hanson on Midday sitting opposite Charlie Perkins. Now, the two would hardly even give themselves eye line. I was almost the intermediary. Charlie, if Pauline would go out in the West and look at your Aboriginal settlements, would you ask her? Well, if she wanted to go, maybe I would. Pauline, if Charlie would personally take you on a tour out, would you go? Well, if Charlie wanted me to go, I could make time. I mean, it was just, I'm just looking at these people. And eventually they did all agree and actually had some words and looked at each other and spoke.
You had some great interviews over the years, didn't you? I mean, I'm thinking of some of the politicians, but some of the big names as well.
Yeah, I've been very lucky.
George Harrison.
George Harrison,
George Harrison.
A Beatle.
Yeah.
And he was so charming, so understated, so gracious. You know, he's got a pair of shorts and a T-shirt, and he just sort of wanders up to the crew and says, "Hi, I'm George." You know, I'm going, "This is George." Yeah, we know who you are. And just so gracious, no real need to do an interview. I think he'd had a bit of publicity being a Beatle, but just so delightful and charming.
Did you sing with him?
No, unfortunately, I was probably too nervous in those days.
Because I get the impression is that still the real love, singing?
Oh, it certainly always was. I still love it. It's deep in my soul. But I'm sort of wise enough these days to keep it to karaoke after midnight. When you watch shows like The Voice and you see the talent in this country, we have the best talent. And these kids start at 5 and 8. So by the time they get to 15 and 18, they are true 10-year professionals. So, you know, you just quietly keep your voice to yourself.
And that thing that comes through in your book, and I kept looking for, given the current environment and the Weinberg effect that's going around the world, and I looked for issues of sexual harassment. Mm-hmm. There was sexism in that it was with the Lisa Wilkinson thing, wasn't it? You were paid significantly less for what you were doing.
Well, do you actually think that was a gender pay gap issue?
No. No, but she was paid significantly less, but she was doing a different job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, we all know in media, you get lucky sometimes. When your contract's up and two people are arguing about you, you're going to do better. And it's got nothing to do with whether you're male or female. Nothing to do with it.
What about sexual harassment? Ever have gropers or that sort of problem?
Yeah, I stood there one time. The back of my dress was completely unzipped. As I swung around, I realised it was a terribly important network person. Oh, that's right, somebody who owned the network. And I said, if you don't zip it up, I will deck you.
And you would have too, wouldn't you?
I probably would have, yeah. But that sort of harassment it wasn't subtle, but it always went on, except the women who probably ended up in relationships, they didn't go away with money, they just got fired. Their use-by date was up, off they went. Today it's different. You've got people you can go to, human resources. There are laws against it. Those days, young women had to put up with a lot of advances, guys just being stupid. I mean, men will always be stupid.
That doesn't
some men,
justify it,
no, it doesn't justify it, but it went on. And every woman who went through television in the 80s and 90s and early knows it went on. And some had, there were a lot of fun guys as well, but there are a lot of guys who crossed the line. It would not be accepted today. In those days, you just had to draw the line for yourself.
Well, you do in the book describe decking a man on a dance floor in New York who turned out to be a friend once he apologised later. Ever decked anybody else?
No, not really, but yes, that right hook came from many years in Brisbane working in divey nightclubs. There is a self-protection mode there, which came in very handy in television in the 80s and 90s. Although I think you put up an aura as a woman in a male-dominated area, you do put up an aura, and guys will either, cross the line or have a crack, or they just sense that it's not right. And I hope young women these days have that personal sense that they don't always, when something goes wrong, run to human resources or run to a lawyer. I don't think that's always the right way to go.
Was the line crossed badly enough that you took action over it?
No. Heavens no. You just say, no, do it up again or I will hit you.
You did it up, I
Yes. But that sort of attitude, the sexist attitude, the discriminatory attitudes, were rife in those days. And yes, women got paid significantly less, whether they were in production, in all areas. But I'm not sure it wasn't probably the same in a lot of other different lawyers' offices and, stockbrokers and all that. I don't think it's any different anywhere else. But now there are laws against it, and everybody gets lectured. Every year somebody's got to go to a lecture to know how to behave. What a joke that is. You actually have to turn up to a room full of people telling you how to behave.
How to be decent.
Yeah. And most people are, but there will always be a section of the community, male or female, who will not behave properly.
You describe in the book how your first husband was abusive, and in fact you trained a rifle on him at one stage, a loaded rifle. This again is in New York. But the thing, that's been reported in some detail, but what stood out to me after all that is you said, well, there's a line in the sand here. I'm never going to allow a man to be abusive towards me again, even verbally.
Ever.
And you
haven't? No.
Because you lucked in with your husband.
I did. Got to get something right eventually. And I've had bullies, try and have a go and do their thing. And a couple of my lines once were say, mate, I have gone toe-to-toe with Kerry Packer, John Singleton, and a lot of people, and you don't rate. So back off.
You've done that?
Absolutely.
Names? No names. No.
No, that's where the lawyers got involved.